What's up everyone? My name is Nick and this is Spinfuel's Daily Vape TV. Today we're going to be taking a look at the IPV3 box mod by Pioneer 4U. Alright, so here are the specs on the IPV3. The wattage is 7 to 150 watts and you can adjust that wattage in 0.1 increments all the way up to 80 watts, and past 80 watts you have to adjust it in full watt increments. The voltage on it is 1 to 8 volts, so you get a lot of power out of it. You have a floating 510 connection, which is brass. I've never had a problem fitting any of my atomizers on there. Everything sits nice and flush. It has an OLED screen, which is nice and bright, very easy to see, which you can adjust your power on. Then you have the touch sensor firing button here, which we'll go over a little bit later in this review. It can hold two 18650 batteries, so you get a long battery life out of them. It's USB upgradable using this port right here. This port is not for charging, only for upgrading the firmware when and if they come out with one from the manufacturer. And it has a 9-volt charging port here, which it does not come with a charger, so if you're planning on using this, make sure you're getting the right charger for it. It has to be a 9-volt, not an 8-volt, not a 5-volt, not a 12-volt, 9-volt charging. So that's the specs on this device. Let's go into the close-up view for a better look. Alright, so here we have the IPV3. Before we open the box, I just want to mention that when I got this thing, the mod was actually on this side and the USB cable was over here, so it looked a little bit funky when I first got it, but maybe it's just because this was a pre-production model and they were rushing it out to get it out to us before the holiday. So let's go ahead and take a look at the box. Here we have IPV3 150 watt. And the back side here has a few little specs. This thing is really cool because it looks like, you know, a modern piece of technology. It looks like a camera box or something like that. So really great packaging on it. Let's go ahead and open the lid. And there's our mod and the USB cable. Didn't come with a charging cable. I know a lot of people have been asking me about that. No charging cable is included, and I guess the reason is because at the price point which this is at, it would be a little bit too expensive to include that cable, so that's why they didn't include it with the package. I wish they would offer it separately, but we'll go over all that later in the pros and cons. Let's just take a look at this thing. Here's our mod. I do have my batteries pre-installed, but I'll show you how to take them out later. Little user manual, and there's not too much, you know, too many spelling mistakes in here. I know with a lot of these Chinese manuals you get a lot of like broken English and stuff, but it's okay. The instructions are actually incorrect. Let me show you a close-up here. Right here where it says 1 to 7 volts for operating voltage, it's actually 8 volts. I did some research and the actual voltage is 8 volts on this thing. But other than that, yeah, pretty basic instructions, really nothing to it, just shows you how to use it. If you're a previous IPV2 owner, you know all about how to use these things, and it's pretty simple anyways. It does come with spare screws for the battery cover, which these are hex screws. Installed are hex screws. These are Phillips head, so if you felt like changing them out, I did lose the actual little blue screwdriver that came with it, so that's kind of a pain for me. So I'm probably going to be switching them out and using these. So it's convenient that they came with that. Other than that, it has a little authenticator piece in here, just a little certification thing, quality control, all that stuff. This one, however, has a few more spelling mistakes. It's a little bit harder to understand what they're trying to say here, but good thing it has little pictures. Basically just how to install the batteries correctly and everything. And here we have the warranty card from asmodus.com. There you go. And finally the USB cable. This thing is a pain to get out of here. USB, it's micro USB, same thing like a Samsung phone or something like that. Not for charging, only for upgrading firmware. Which I did go on the manufacturer's website, and it's almost impossible to navigate, but I haven't seen any firmware updates yet for this thing. Alright, so here we have our IPV3. Let's go ahead and turn it on. It's a 5-click on-off. There we go. Has a little Pioneer logo, IPV3. And we're ready to go. Right now I'm vaping it at 100 watts. Batteries are on their way out, but it's 0.2 ohm coil on this thing, so that's to be expected. Now if you hold down these two buttons, you can lock it and just double click or click again and unlock it. So if you're throwing it in your pocket or something like that, you don't want it to accidentally fire, which I highly doubt it's going to, because the button is very clicky. So it's not difficult to push, but it's difficult to accidentally fire. Here's a better look at the LED screen. Nice and bright. It goes bright for a few seconds and then it will shut off. And if you're just vaping it, it'll go dim. If you click these two buttons here, it'll say touch on, and it will have the touch sensor turned on, and just these two buttons will shut it off. So these two for turning the touch sensor on, and these two for turning it off. To adjust your wattage, all you have to do is either hold this button down until this option comes up, and it has 5 selectable memory functions to which you can customize, which is really cool. The only unfortunate part about that is when you take out the batteries and put in fresh batteries, it does erase these settings. So you're going to have to reset this feature every time you change your batteries on it, which is another reason I wish they would have included the charging cable with it. But I digress. If you want to just change it manually, just hit the down button here, and you can change it at 1 watt increments all the way down to 80 watts, and then it goes to 0.1 increments. So just hit the down button until you find your wattage that you're looking for. Let's go with 75. And it does scroll really fast if you just hold the button down, so be ready for it when it comes up. Okay, so we're going to lock it in by pressing the fire button. Obviously it says check atomizer right now because I don't have anything on there, but otherwise it would just dim the screen and you're ready to vape. So let's go ahead and take off the battery cover and I'll show you the internals. Alright, so removing the battery cover reveals the internals. It has your little authenticator sticker there. My serial number is 75. Hopefully you guys can see that. And inside you have two 18650 batteries with this little ribbon to remove them. Just be careful when you're using that because you don't want to bend the springs up or anything like that. You don't want to damage the internals. So I've got two fresh 18650s ready to go, and we're going to go ahead and pop them in there. Everything looks pretty clean inside. There's no wires hanging around anywhere, no hot glue or anything like that, so pretty impressed by that fact. Really nice and clean, just good looking. So the overall look and feel of this device is really nice. Unfortunately I dropped mine, so I have a few little dings here. This thing came to me in pristine condition. Everything was nice and shiny. Over the past few weeks though, I have dinged it up a little bit. I've been bringing it out, really putting it through its paces, and it's standing up a lot to a lot of the wear and tear that I've been putting on this thing. Here again you have the IPV logo with a little galaxy looking background. Pretty nice looking, pretty cool. And your 9-volt charging port. Supposedly it has a little red light in there that turns on when it's charging. As far as the touch sensor, I get a lot of questions on that as well. My touch sensor does not work at all. I've tried turning it on, turning it off. Looked up the firmware. There's no updates for it yet, so that's not a functioning piece right there. I don't know if it's a complete dummy piece or what, but it just does not work at all. So here we have the floating 510 connection, and it is made of brass. I'll just demonstrate here. You can just go ahead and push this up and down, and it's gonna spring back, and that makes it so you don't have to adjust it every time you pop a new atomizer on there, which makes it really convenient because you can just thread any addy on and you're good to go. It does say in the instructions not to actually thread that in or out because it will remove the 510. They don't want you to do that, obviously. And by default, it goes back to 7 watts, which is the lowest setting. So we're going to change this one to 120 watts, which I've been vaping this thing at. So there we go. You lock it in by pressing the fire button, and it goes dim. You can barely see it on the camera here. But now we're vaping at 5.4 volts on a 0.2 ohm coil, 120 watts. Alright, so we have it at 120 watts, and I'll show you how it fires. And I have used this thing on a 0.16 ohm coil, and it works just fine. I've fired many different builds on this thing, and I've never had a misfire or anything. I've never had any problems with it, which is great. Let me show you the bottom real quick. Here's the battery vent holes and the USB plug for you to upgrade your firmware. Alright, so that's the close-up portion of the IPV3 review. Let's go back to the main screen, have a couple of vapes, and talk about it some more. Woo! It's a bit of a hot vape at 120 watts, and I was unable to vape at this high of a wattage before using different coils. I had to kind of adjust using a larger size coil to get that, ability to wick it right. But now I got it working just fine, over 100 watts. And it's quite nice, to be honest. Really enjoying this thing so far. So I'm going to go ahead and show you that the touch sensor does not work. Just turn it on here, touch on. The touch sensor is now on. I'm going to go ahead and press it. Absolutely nothing happens. Not sure if they just put a piece of plastic in there or what. That looks like a touch sensor. To me, I think that would be a lot of work for absolutely nothing. Maybe they'll update the firmware and this thing will work. I don't really care either way. The button on it is really nice and clicky. Fires every single time. I have no problem with that. And that is just kind of an unnecessary feature in my book. I love the buttons on it. They're very clicky, very responsive. They're a little bit recessed, so it doesn't really stick out too far. But they're very accessible. It feels good in your hand. It feels like you're using a solid piece of kit, It feels like you're vaping on something with a lot of power, which I really like. I mean, even my first build with this thing, I was vaping at 75 watts, and that was almost too much vapor. It wasn't necessarily too hot, but it was like a ton of vapor. Anything over 100 watts on that coil just wouldn't work for me, so I had to kind of adjust my coils to suit the higher power. And one of the better things about this mod, in my opinion, is the memory feature. You can save your wattages for later, so you just pop it right back to whatever wattage you want. I like 120 watts with this build, so that's where I'm going to vape it at. It does show the battery dip whenever you're vaping too. It's hard to see obviously when you're using the fire button, but if you just fire it, it shows the battery dip. The batteries last a while. I was vaping it at 75 watts for about 8 hours before I had to change the batteries on it, which is excellent. That's tons of power for the amount of time that you get. So in that sense, I think it's a really good thing. let's go over the pros and the cons. So my first pro is going to be the fact that this thing is a lot of power. This is a ton of power, more power than almost every mod on the market. The only one that I've seen that beats it is the God mod, which is 180 watts. And I'm sure there's going to be others out there that are climbing past 150. But for me personally, I don't need the 150 watt power. It's just nice to have the ability to do it. Another pro for me is the relative small size of it. I mean, compared to an MVP side by side, I mean, this is a single 18650 internal battery, and this is a dual 18650, and as you can see, it's just slightly larger. It's about 3/4 of an inch larger, and it's almost marginally thicker, like very, very slightly thicker. But the overall size and weight and feel of it, it's not too bad. It feels comfortable in your hand, and for the amount of power, I think the trade-off is definitely worth it in my book. As I stated, I love the battery life on it. With vaping at 75 watts, you get a ton of time out of it, and even if you're vaping at 30 or 50 watts or something like that, you're going to get even longer out of two 18650s. I also like the fact that it's USB upgradable, so if they ever come out with a firmware update in the near future, I can always just pop this thing onto my computer and upgrade it, if I can find it on the manufacturer's website, which it's a little bit tricky. I absolutely love the floating 510 pin, and the fact that it's made out of brass is even better. I know the Sigelei 100 watt has a copper pin, but it's screw threaded on there, so you have to adjust it. I'd prefer having something that's going to auto adjust and fit every single atomizer, which this does. It fits nice and flush on there. There's never any gap. I've used a ton of different addies on here, and I've never had a problem. Alright, so let's get to some cons. First con is the plastic. I know that you have to reduce the weight by using lighter materials, but I feel like if they made this thing out of aluminum, it would be a lot more rugged. Like I said, I've dropped this thing and it does have a few dings in it, so that's kind of a bummer, but other than that, it's not too bad. I just wouldn't really bring it out too much or try to find a skin that fits it or something. But just be careful with it and you'll be all set. Just really wish they would use aluminum instead of plastic. Another con is going to have to be the touch sensor. I would have just gotten rid of this feature, but they felt necessary to include it. Personally, I would never really use it. I do want to play around with it because it's there, but since it's not functioning, I can't, so it's really pointless to me. I do want to note that this is a pre-production model. I got this really early, and I think they could have on future versions of this thing an updated version where it has that functioning. Not positive, I haven't seen anything online yet, but I believe they are working on a newer version of this already, so stay tuned for that. I'll try to update you guys as the information becomes available. As far as the battery door cover, really wish they used magnets instead of screws. It's a pain to get these on and off every single time you want to change out your batteries, and if you're vaping at 100, 120, 150 watts, your batteries are going to die relatively quickly. So changing those out every single time is a pain, and like I said, I lost my little blue screwdriver that was included for the hex screws, so unfortunately I'm sticking to the Phillips heads for now. But yeah, I really wish they would have just put magnets on there. It just seems more convenient to just slap the cover right on there, and from what I've seen with other mods that use magnets, they stick pretty good. You're never going to have a problem with that. Another con in my book is going to have to be the fact that they didn't include the charging cable. Now this mod cost $150, and at that price point you would think that they could just include like a really cheap 9-volt charger for it. It shouldn't cost more than a couple bucks, but unfortunately they are not including them in the package, and you do have to find the right one for it, so just be really careful with that and make sure you're getting the right one for it. It's got to be 9-volt. If you get anything else, it's not going to work, or you could potentially damage your device. That about wraps up the pros and cons section. I do want to mention the fact that this mod is definitely not for your amateur, not for your newbie vapor. You do want to have quite a bit of experience when vaping on this thing. You got to know exactly how to build your coils to suit the higher power, and I like the fact that you can kind of adjust it to suit your coils, but for me personally, I wanted to push its limits and see how far I could get up there. And right now I'm vaping at 120 watts, and it's vaping like a dream. So, but for you newbies out there, it's just definitely not for you guys. Advanced vapors, you might be interested in this thing. So the big question is whether or not I would have purchased this device if I did not receive it for free for the purpose of review. And my answer would be yes. Yes, because it's so much power, and I love the idea of a dual 18650 regulated box mod, and the fact that you get 150 watts out of it is really amazing. The power on this thing is great, the battery life is great, the overall size and shape, form, function, everything is great. There are a few drawbacks, you know, the touch sensor, not including the charging cable, things like that kind of bug me, but they're mostly just, you know, little things. Function-wise, though, I've never had a problem with it. I really appreciate Pioneer4U for sending this out to me. I've had a great time playing around with this thing, and it just is nuts. I mean, the power and control you have over this device is just amazing. Truly a revolution in the world of vaping. So thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to like, favorite, and subscribe. Check out www.spinfuel.com for lots more of my videos, as well as Smokin' Joey and the Vapor Trail channel. They just updated the site, so make sure you stop on over and check it out. And as always, vape on.